For this lecture, we're going to focus on cultural landscape, and it's mainly going to be around women's issues, but we're going to talk more about other parts of this here. So, the cultural landscape is human activities superimposed impact on the physical environment, and this is different for based appropriate what's based on gender all over the place. So, let's look at some things here. I'm going to hit on rise and placelessness first. Rise and placelessness is the fact that basically as the culture has become more globalized, that you see much more of the cultural landscape being very similar around the world. For example, down here in the bottom left corner, this is a show called The Burqa Avenger. It's a show out of Pakistan where working on women's issues in Pakistan, where basically they created a kids cartoon where this teacher was a teacher by day, and at night she was the Burqa Avenger, where she went around and fought crime. And how did she do it? With pencils and books. Well, it sounds like something that would be created in America, except in this case, it's just being more culturally appropriate for Pakistan. Another example here. This is Tanak. It's triple talaq. It is out of India. It's a very conservative Muslim group out of India that they had this practice where like for me, for instance, if I went to my wife and I was a believer in this part, I would say talak, 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 and we'd be legally divorced at that point. And divorce laws were such that the women basically got nothing. And so that's where you start to have some major issues here. And so I'm going to look at some of the policy aspects of things here for women. But we all know that there are cultural things too, like social expectations, like think around what people wear, think around how people act in public, of just how it's different for men and women. So first, let's look around the world. This is distribution of agricultural holders by sex. You can see here that it is significantly lower for females where there actually is data. However, the amount of work done by women is significantly higher, especially in LDCs. Now, here's some of the stats. Legal exemption for rapists if marriage is proposed. Inequity in family law and practice. I'd like to point out here that the most, like, no country is perfect here with equality by any stretch of the imagination on gender equality, but some parts in the world are better. The Scandinavian countries in generally are better than most. Practice of property rights for women and trafficking of women. Notice that no country is in this dark green, that they're here. Now, so those are some law issues, and then there's here someone's got to do it. Restrictions on women's employment, and so this is where you have just you can't do different laws. So a lot of these in like Middle Eastern countries or predominantly Muslim countries have to do around handling of meat, but then there's also I'm guessing when these went in, they were there for protection of people. Night, night, night. I mean, you just have things at night. There we go. And then you still some parts in the world have with menstruation that they can't do things while menstruating. I mean, so you just have there's so many different parts of the world at this point. It's 2.7 billion women do not have the same job choice as men. So when you look at cultural landscape, I mean, even the right to vote came on so recently that it needed to be with in different ways. And so cultural landscape is far from equal for men and women. Yeah, they have different legal rights in different parts of the world and different social expectations. And so the cultural landscape looks different for who you are and where you are. And there's so many other examples of this. I mean, you could go into race here. You could go the LGBTQ community. I mean, you could go into so many different places. In this case, I just have a talk about men versus women. But I mean, there's cultural landscape and the human activity superimposed on the physical environment. That sounds so simple, but it just looks so different depending on where you are in the world.